Hey everybody, welcome to LSU Live. I'm your host, Grant Sashray. Zach will not be here. He had to he had some work to do, of course. As we all know, he's the school teacher, he's got lots of going on. So today I will be going solo. Which I'm very comfortable doing. But just this is usually sometimes this is what happens when you got a lot of stuff going on. It's at the end of the school year for him, so uh, and as a middle school teacher, you got also they have LEAP coming up, which is kind of like their Louisiana standardized testing. So it's a very busy schedule for our boy Zach. But make sure to like this video and subscribe to LSU on the Voice of College Football Network. And also, you can follow us down here at the bottom screen. Of course, you just mentioned, as you kind of see, we have a new background now. Shout out to Chris Sadler for creating this. And, we got our social media handles down there. And just going back to like and subscribing. The more you like the video and the more you subscribe, it helps the channel grow. We get more viewers. Also more money for us. No, the more money, the better, because if the more money, you're able to create better content. And we want to make sure we give you guys the best content possible. And you guys make this happen. You truly do. So I just want to give a shout out to all the people that have been watching us over the last few weeks. And, I've been watching the views. It's been slowly growing. And I really appreciate me, Zach, and of course the rest of the Voice of College Football Network really appreciate that. So anyway, last week, of course, we had the spring game or scrimmage or open practice or whatever you want to call it. We also, LSU had a dud of a week. Of course, they got swept by Auburn. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk a little bit about the Nico Iamaleava situation. I know that has nothing to do with LSU, but that is a trending topic in college football. We were kind of waiting for this moment to kind of happen, but now it happened. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, I want to start the show by mentioning a tragedy that has afflicted not only all of LSU Nation, but all of the state of Louisiana and even the southeastern United States. But Kyron Lacy was pronounced dead at the age of 24. He was in Houston training for the NFL draft, and he committed suicide. And that's not how I wanted to start off the show, by mentioning this tragedy, but it's hard to avoid because not only was Kyron a very integral player of LSU's football team the last 3 years, he also was a son, a teammate, a brother, a member of the community who lost his life at a young age. 24 is a very young age. And of course, we all know about his situation back in, I believe it was January, where he was involved in a vehicular manslaughter charge, and he killed a person, a 78-year-old elderly man. And it's just a tragic situation all around, but we're not here to mention that. We're here to mention, his life, and he was more than just that. Like I said, he was not only a football player at LSU, but he also was a tremendous person as well. And Jacques Bissett of WAFB, he reported the news first. Former LSU wide receiver Kyron Lacy has passed away at the age of 24 in Houston. A family member has confirmed. Let me actually share this with you guys so you can read it along with me. But his death is a suspected suicide, a source said. A spokesperson for the Harris County Precinct 4 Constable's Office said the death occurred early Sunday morning on April 13th. Lacey was arrested earlier this year on charges related to a deadly hit-and-run crash in Lafourche Parish. A grand jury was set to start hearing evidence in the case tomorrow morning. His lawyer released a following statement. It is with profound sorrow that we confirm the tragic passing of Kyron Lacey. First and foremost, we ask that the public and the media give his family the space and time they need to grieve this unimaginable loss in peace. Kyron was scheduled to have his matter heard before a grand jury tomorrow, when we were very confident the evidence, after being fully collected and reviewed, will lead to a declination charge. That I heard there was a good chance that he wouldn't get charged with this because they had some evidence where it kind of pleaded that he was innocent in all this. Oh, when I say innocent, I mean it wasn't enough where he would get charged. From the very beginning, this so-called investigation took on the appearance of an overzealous, targeted effort, what can only be described as a witch hunt fueled by who Kyron was and the public profile he carried. That the decision by the investigating agency to charge him at all, in our view, is not only unjustified, it was disturbing. It's imperative to understand the Lafourche Parish District Attorney to this day has not formally charged Kyron. Kyron was a young man with immense promise, and he was crushed under the weight of an irresponsible and prejudiced process. The negative barrage on social media, the circulation of his mugshot by nearly every news outlet rather than a standard photo, the recent civil lawsuit filed against him that named another defendant who mysteriously wasn't charged with the crime, only him, and the overall tone of coverage painted a deeply biased picture before he ever had the chance to defend himself. There was never a presumption of innocence, which was exemplified by the NFL pulling his draft card over mere accusations without affording him the slightest chance to defend himself. The pressure and perception likely became unbearable. Let us be absolutely clear. This is far from over. We'll be demanding a full and transparent review of how this investigation was conducted and why those responsible for this gross miscarriage of justice must and will be held accountable. In the meantime, we again urge everyone to respect the Lacey family's privacy and allow them the dignity to mourn the loss of their beloved son. That was from Kyron Lacey's lawyer. The family of Herman Hall, the 78-year-old who died in the Lafourche Parish crash, released a statement also. Our family understands how painful it is to lose someone you love. Give me 1 second, guys. There we go. Sorry about that. Our family understands how painful it is to lose someone you love, and we extend our deepest sympathy to his family. In Lacey's most recent season at LSU, he led the Tigers receiving touchdowns, 9, and was second on the team in catches, 58, and receiving yards, 866. During his 5-year collegiate career at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette and LSU, he caught 162 passes for 2,360 yards and scored 26 touchdowns. The following statement was released by the LSU Athletics Department. We're saddened to learn of the tragic passing of former LSU football student athlete Kyron Lacey. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family and loved ones, as well as his former teammates and coaches impacted by his passing. And I know his father released a statement as well. Let me pull this up for you guys also. But, his dad also released a statement as well. So let me pull this up for you. Let me pull this up. Because he shared it on Facebook. I'm about to go through Facebook. Here we go. This is Kenny Lacey, the father of Kyron Lacey. Young parents, start talking to your kids at a very early age and make sure they are confident and comfortable confiding in you. Don't be cool with I'm all right or I'm good when you know deep down something isn't right. Mental health is real and for the most part, it's invisible. Don't ignore the signs, even if they may seem small. Our lives change forever, and this will never be okay. But God needed my baby more than he was needed here. This has to be the biggest pill our families have had to swallow, but I know the love and compassion and our families will get us through. This will never get easier, but we'll learn to live with it. Check on your kids' mental with a bunch of exclamation points. I mean, it's very, very tragic. Um, Very, very tragic situation that unfolded in Houston with the loss of life of Kyron Lacey, dead at the age of 24, way too young to leave this earth. It's just a really, really tragic situation all around, and my thoughts and prayers go out to um, his family and his friends, his former teammates, everyone that was touched by Kyron Lacey. I mean, I never really got a chance to know, like, I don't really know him all that well. Like, I wasn't around him every day like some of these guys were, but as a media member, he always gave great interviews. He was very friendly. He was just a all around great guy. I know a lot of people think of his celebrations and think that's a representation of who he is. That's not the case. He was an overall good human being who made a terrible mistake. And of course, social media made the situation even worse by just attacking his personality, and instead of looking at a good person who made a terrible mistake that even allegedly made it. I'm gonna make that very clear. Allegedly made a terrible mistake, because we still don't know the full details of what happened. That's why they're going to have the hearing today. But because of the situation that unfolded in Houston, where Kyron Lacey took his own life, we will. It just kind of clouds what really happened that night, but also, I just feel like in the age of social media, I wonder if we just didn't have any social media at all and stuff like this, would he still be alive? Because I know social media can be a beast, and I think him committing suicide had nothing to do. I mean, yeah, it had a little bit to do maybe with the possibility of your NFL chances of going to the NFL are over because of this whole situation. I really think it had more to do with the constant barrage of negativity on social media that led to his depression, and it just was too much for him. And instead of seeking consolation from friends and family, and he decided to take his own life. And that was his decision to make. And it's just a tragic situation all around. It's just a very dark way to start the show. I don't really know how to handle this, because again, like, I knew him to a degree. I just saw him at LSU's pro day like a week or two ago, and just a very unreal and tragic situation. So once again, thoughts and prayers go out to his family, and also I want to make sure Kyron Lacey has an easy and safe passage to the gates of heaven. But anyway, let's talk about the open scrimmage, or whatever you want to call it. I know it's a different format from years past, of course, and it's not your stereotypical spring game, and you've seen that a lot in recent years, where coaches have kind of had their spring games more of a open practice than an actual spring game. And also a huge difference this year was that the spring game was not televised. And, a lot, you've seen that around the country. I think coaches are afraid that their players are going to get poached or whatnot. but also coaches may want to install some things that they don't want it to be broadcasted. But it was also different because there's a lot of fan interaction with the team after the spring game. Fans were able to take a picture with BK and also get autographs from their favorite players. And as you can imagine, the line for BK's autograph session was past the 50-yard line, and the line to get an autograph from Gary Nussmeier was even longer. And I actually like the fact that LSU kind of put all the, they kind of, for example, let's say the quarterbacks, this is how it was, the quarterbacks and offensive linemen were grouped together. So let's say everyone wanted to get Gary Nussmeier's autograph. Well, they also had to go through the offensive line to get Gary Nussmeier's autograph, so that way everyone got equal love. But as you can imagine, the line to get Gary Nussmeier's autograph was really long. But kind of go for what happened in the spring game. Let's start off with the first part of the scrimmage, and that was the 11-on-11. And a lot of good things happened. Right? I mean, from what I could tell, like from Michael Van Buren was great, looked great out there. He was 6 for 7 for 6. I think it was like 69 yards. He looked pretty good in the 11-11 portions. Of course, there was an 11-11 portion first, and then they had a lot of stuff in between that, and then they went to the second portion of 11-11. And Michael Van Buren looked pretty good out there. He did miss a wide open touchdown pass. Nick Anderson smoked DJ Pickett, but Michael Van Buren just missed him, and that was pretty much really his only quote unquote bad incompletion or bad overthrow. He looked pretty good pretty solid. Of course, Nussmeier looked pretty solid as well. But I think one of the key takeaways too was Harlem Berry. Harlem Berry looked good, man. And, Caden Durham went out early in the scrimmage. He got hurt in the earliest part of the 11-on-11. And he had to set up for most of it. But so Caleb Jackson took most of the reps on the first team offense, but Harlem Berry outshined him. I mean, Harlem Berry, so if you combine his carries on both the 11v11 sessions, he ran the ball 5 times for 53 yards and added 2 catches for 22 yards. I mean, that's a little over 10 yards a carry. He also had a 23-yard rush in the second half of the scrimmage. So he looked really good out there, and he had elite vision and he had a lot of great bursts. He was bouncing up tackles and showed off the same traits that made him a versatile. Well, really, just the number 1 running back in the country. Just to kind of sum that up, and he just looked really good out there. But the one thing I haven't mentioned, and really this is the main takeaway from the scrimmage, was just how dominant the defensive line was, especially on the edge. I couldn't really count how many times LSU sacked, had a sack. LSU's defense had a sack. There was no live stats, so you had to do your own stats, and sometimes that's pretty difficult at times, right? I don't think people realize how difficult it is to do stats, right? Because you got to do offensive and defensive stats on your own. You got to be locked in like 150% of the time. It's extremely. This is one of the more challenging things, and I've gotten better over time because, of course, I cover a lot of high school sports. So you have to cover. You do your own stats, but when you're hiding in the press box, you don't have binoculars. You got to do your best to do the stats. But LSU had around 10 sacks in the scrimmage, and Jamari Butler had 3. He had the most. He was He was dominant all throughout the scrimmage. Jack Parburn also had 2 sacks. Gabe Relaford also had 2 sacks. Patrick Payne had a sack. And who else? And Amar Burrow had a sack. And Amar Burrow had two tackles for loss and 1 sack. Just a dominant performance by the edge rushers. And then, of course, Amar Burrow representing on the inside. And that's been a common theme among during spring camp, just the domination of the defensive line. And there's kind of two flips of the coin here, because on one hand, the defensive line looks dominant, especially on the edge. On the other side of the coin is the offensive line that bad? I mean, and it's a fair question. I mean, I'll say this. It's hard to judge what a team does during the spring and even in fall camp. And the reason why I say that is because during the 2019 National Championship team, I remember this, and I wasn't part of the media then, but I just remember this, as a student. And the offensive line was not very good, right? Like in that spring game. About 8 months later, that offensive line won the Jordan Moore Award, which is awarded to the best offensive line unit in the country. Another great example, Jane Daniels. When he first got to LSU, his spring game was awful. Awful. Remember, when he first got to LSU, they had to teach him footwork because he never really was developed properly when he was at Arizona State. And not only that, both Garrett Nussmeier, who was a freshman then, or redshirt freshman, because he already was a freshman, but you get the deal. And then Miles Brennan, remember him? They both had better spring games than Jane Daniels did. What is Jane Daniels doing now? He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, going into his second year. A lot of things can happen. Also, I know this is really spring ball, but Deuce Chestnut, I remember, was probably LSU's best cover corner, if not the one of the best cover corner in LSU's fall camp in 2023. He left the team midseason because he got beat out. He did not look great. Got beat out and had some discipline issues and left the team. So it's hard to judge the offensive line's performance in the spring because, like I say, you won't know anything until LSU travels to Clemson, South Carolina, goes into the other Death Valley, and square up against the Clemson Tigers. You won't know anything until then, because right now it's just LSU versus LSU. These guys know their tendencies. These guys have gone up against each other, for the last 2 or 3 years. So they already know what the strengths and weaknesses. So it's easy to kind of exploit that. When you go up against Clemson, the team that you have not played since the 2019 or /2020 national championship game in New Orleans, that was the last time LSU played Clemson. Of course, we all know how that turned out. LSU beat Clemson to win the national championship, and that 2019 will forever live in. Will forever be considered to be one of, if not the best, college football teams of all time. But I'm not, so like when I say the defensive line looked good, I'm not lying to you. They look great. there's a lot of people that would bat for me when I say that the defensive line looked great. Well, how will they look against Clemson? Same thing with the offensive line. Will the offensive line allow 10 sacks against Clemson? I have no idea. But it's kind of hard to tell right now in April because I'm just going off of what I see at the moment. But things could change dramatically in the next 5-6 months, right? So that Clemson game will show you how good this LSU team really is. And especially with the edge rushers. I mean, there's a reason why. I mean, Brian Kelly made a concerted effort to bring in Jack Piper from Florida. They're bringing in Jamari Butler from Nebraska. They're bringing in Patrick Payne from Florida State. All those guys are veterans. All those guys have played at least 4 years of college football. Jamari Butler is a super senior. He's played 6, while Jack Piper and Patrick Payne have played 4 years of college football. And they've been awesome throughout the spring. And the fans, in the attendance at Tiger Stadium, got to see that. And then also on top of that, you have Gabe Relaford coming off of Gabe Relaford coming back. He had a strong freshman campaign. You also have Kalaj Cobbins coming off of he didn't really play much last year, but he's a guy that really had a great spring and fall camp when he came to LSU last year, and he's continued that into this fall in the spring. And he's a guy that will probably get a lot of playing time come fall as a rotational player. And of course, we already know about the interior defensive line: Modbro, Dominic McKinley. Those guys were the stars late in the season as true freshmen. Of course, you brought in Sadir Mitchell, who's 6'6", all of 6'6", 355 pounds. And Sean Washington, who's also a veteran. I mean, the defensive line this year not only is better, but it has a lot more depth. But we'll see when they go up against Clemson. But another thing I want to talk about. Actually, let me pull this up because Brian Kelly, I want to pull Brian Kelly's what he has to say for you guys to kind of know what I'm talking about. Let me share this with you guys. There we go. Give me 1 second. Oop. Share screen. There we go. So this is Brian Kelly talking about the defense ends.
You've got mature players that have played a lot of football, and certainly that shows up. And it didn't just show up today for me; it showed up every day in practice. And I will say this: I mean, we were very, I would say, intentional about who we were looking for and the kind of personality. Those guys are great workers. They do it the right way off the field, in this building. They are leaders, even in the sense of how they handle themselves amongst our football team, even though they've only been here since January. So these were really impactful players, not only from an edge standpoint in terms of what you see, but I can tell you from behind the scenes, they're very impactful as well.
Brian, we also didn't see Destin Hill, if you can give an update there.
So, yeah, of course, they're talking about the injury report. Destin Hill did not participate. He had a high ankle sprain. So nothing serious, but high ankle sprain, he's going to be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. But nothing like a torn ACL or any of those things that he's going to be held out throughout next season. But then also I also mentioned Caden Durham also had a ankle sprain as well. But his was a little bit more mild, and it's nothing even too serious there. But anyway, also want to talk about from the spring game is the D-line rotations. Not the D-line, the O-line rotations. So in most of it, it was Tyree Adams at left tackle, Paul Mubenga at left guard, DJ Chester at center, right guard Cole Eccles, and that right tackle you had Weston Davis on the second team. Karis Kearney was a left tackle. Ori Williams, the left guard. Braylon Moore was at center. Bo Bordelon was at right guard, and Josh Thompson was at right tackle. So that's how it looked for the first and second team. However, when they were doing the goal line stuff, they were backed up. They did this thing where they were backed up on like their own three. Oh, I think it was their own three. Actually, maybe the 1 yard line, but they're deep in their own territory, right? Nonetheless, and so the guys who they had out there, Tyree Adams, left tackle, of course, Josh Thompson, the left guard, Braylon Moore at center, Cohen Eccles at right guard, and Weston Davis at right tackle. So that's something that to watch out for. And also they had DJ Chester also rotated in at right guard as well with Cohen Eccles. So you could see. It's hard for me to believe that Josh Thompson and Braylon Moore are not in the starting offensive line, right? I really, those guys were brought in the start. Now the guys who I mentioned that were part of the first team end up being them out because they've just been balling out of practice. That's one thing, but I'll be highly shocked if one of those guys or even both those guys aren't a part of the starting offensive line come this September when they have to travel to play Clemson in what should be a top 10 matchup. And I think College Game Day is going to be there, right? They love going to Clemson, especially when it's a top 10 matchup. So it's going to be a crazy atmosphere in Clemson, South Carolina. And of course, you want to have a guy like Josh Thompson, who's played 30 plus games as a right tackle at Northwestern in the Big Ten, which is arguably the first or second best conference, depending on how you view the conference. And now the Big Ten and SEC are the two best conferences in college football. And there's no way you can debate. There's no way you can say the ACC is better than either the Big Ten or the SEC. Those are the two best conferences. And then also a guy like Braylon Moore, who was a starting center for Virginia Tech, also started over 30 games, and also is very familiar with the Death Valley, the other Death Valley in Clemson, and also has a lot of experience. It's hard for me to see those guys sit on the bench when those two guys have more experience than the guys already mentioned in the first team. But anyway, there was another thing that I thought was very interesting, and really, this is what I'm really excited about in terms of the offense is, Joe Sloan was cooking, straight up cooking. He was cooking the gumbo, the crawfish etouffee. I don't even know what's going. I think he was boiling some crawfish as well with some potatoes and corn. He was cooking. He was cooking. So kind of going over what they did in the red zone and goal line portion of the scrimmage. The first play, 3 tight end set. They do a quarterback draw with Garrett Nussmeier, takes the ball and runs in the end zone. And of course, the LSU crowd went wild, sarcastically, because Gary Nussmeier was known as a guy who liked to scramble when he probably needed to scramble at that moment. But I'm glad that Garrett's a lot more comfortable scrambling and trying to extend the play. I think we all wanted to see him do that. And there's a lot of times last season where he was trying to do too much with his arm instead of trying to maybe get an extra 3 yards to keep the drive going. And so instead of taking the sack or throwing an interception, famously against A&M, he tried to extend the play. And instead of just running to get the 3-4 yards that he needed to get the first down, he decided to throw it deep. He threw the interception, and that changed the whole entire game. And Texas A&M came back and won that game. But on the second play, Caleb Jackson, your prototypical dive play, he scored it there. But the third play was pretty interesting. It was a misdirection pass play where Gary Nussmeier rolled out. Caleb Jackson kind of sat in the middle of the field. Desperado threw it back to him. Caleb Jackson went into the end zone. And this is the fourth play. I like this play. Fourth play. They flexed Nuss to receiver. Juwan Johnson was the quarterback. I think it was Caleb Jackson was the running back, if I remember correctly. And it was a wildcat play. And Juwan Johnson, read option, and he ran into the end zone. So I felt like the creativity there. The fifth play, it was an incomplete pass. But the sixth play, I really like this. 4 tight ends set, all 4 of them. So when they do the 3 tight end set, as I mentioned in the first play, it was Trey Green, Bauer Sharp. Those 2 guys are your first team tight ends whenever you do 12 personnel stuff. And then also in the 3 tight end set, you had Donovan Green. And the 4 tight end set, you had all 3 of those guys plus Borderline, who is installed as more of a blocking tight end. And in a 4 tight end set, Nussbaum threw a shovel pass to Bauer Sharp, wide open for the touchdown. And it was some really cool plays. And I like what Joe Slum was cooking there. And of course, you also have to mention Alex Atkins being there as well, who was also has more experience as a play caller than, let's just say, than Cortez Hankton, right? Cortez Hankton also he is the ops coordinator by title, although he's never called plays in his coaching career. So having a guy like Alex Atkins in there as well to kind of help out with the game plan and play calling, I think is extremely beneficial to LSU's offense, especially when they try to get more physical, especially up front in the run game. But anyway, let's see. Brian Kelly had some thoughts about the red zone stuff. I'm probably going to show you that. I'm probably going to do another show. To be honest with you, later this week. I'll let you guys know. I've been trying to plan on doing something on Thursday, Friday for a little while now, since we kind of gotten rolling. So I'll let you guys know. But we'll talk more about that in the next show. But moving on from that. It's kind of ironic that LSU really wasn't the main talking point in terms of the spring game. In terms of going into the spring game, LSU really wasn't the main topic, right? It was throughout the week, but the day of the spring game, it wasn't. Why? That's because Nico Iamaleava, the quarterback for Tennessee, or let's say the former quarterback of Tennessee, decided that he wanted a little bit more money. He was getting paid $2.5 million at Tennessee, but he wanted to bump it up to $4 million. And there's been an ongoing dispute about that for a little while now. It's gotten pretty nasty, actually. And Nico Iamaleava did not show up to practice on Friday, or meetings or practice on Friday. And that's when Josh Heupel, the head coach of Tennessee, decided, like, all right, yeah, we're going to move on. Like, we're not dealing with this. And apparently, this is what I kind of been reading too, was that, if I remember this correctly, Dan Lanning, the head coach of Oregon, let Josh Heupel know that Nico Iamaleava was fishing, well, his representatives, let me say not Nico Iamaleava, but his representatives were fishing around to see, different offers, what they could provide for Nico and stuff like that. And Dan Lanning got word of this because I think they got contact to Oregon. Dan Lanning let Josh Heupel know what was going on. And really, this was going back all the way, even in the middle of the season, because apparently, I think it was during the bowl game that they were looking for suitors for Nico's representatives were looking for suitors. And it's just a mess all the way around. Just not an ideal situation. And we all know that this was going to happen eventually. Just because, even though a lot because of the professionalization of college sports, although I'm not sure if I mentioned this on the show before, but I probably have. College sports has always been professional. It was just done under the table, right? I mean, so I don't know why people were acting shocked about this whole fiasco when this paying players has always been a part of college sports for a very long time. And that was one of the reasons why the NCAA allowed colleges to let college student athletes make bank off their name, image, and likeness. And I'm going to play a clip of what Brian Kelly thought about this. And if find the right times. All right, here we go. So this is what Brian Kelly thought about the whole situation.
I just think, he's another weapon that we can utilize in help our offense.
Just a wild day in the SEC for a member school. I don't know if you're aware of that or have any thoughts on that. And what do you, if you do have thoughts on it, you want to share? What do you do here internally to prevent moments like that?
Well, I think we're in this period of adjustment, right? I mean, I think we've got a settlement that is in the throes of being decided. The House settlement is coming close. That will, bring us most likely some form of revenue sharing. I think there's changes coming in NIL. I think this is the first version of corrections, maybe. I think that we're going to see a lot of this. This was a new world, and I think we're going to navigate it the best that we can. But I think that there's going to be other situations that come, and we're just going to have to, do the best we can. I think there's going to be better information out there that will allow people to look at comps for positions and say, that makes sense, that doesn't make sense. And it'll allow us to navigate this a lot more reasonably moving forward, for good or bad. And people can make decisions. If you want to pay X, then that's what you can do. But I think this is the natural course that would happen when there weren't many guidelines out there. And moving forward, I think with the House settlement and, with a, potentially a clearinghouse for NIL, I think we'll see, a better place as we continue to move forward.
Hey, Coach, I'm curious.
So that was Brian Kelly's thoughts about the whole Nico Iamaleava situation. And I just want to make this very clear. I'm very, very pro NIL. I'm very pro athletes exploring the open market and getting better opportunities, to make more money, get playing time, you name it, right? Because coach could do that all the time. Why can't the players? And I'm all for it. My only issue with this whole situation is that Nico Iamaleava was a very average quarterback, especially when he got into SEC play. And let me pull up his stats right here to kind of show you what's going on. Let me try to find it here. And see stats. Nico Iamaleava. Game log. Okay, here we go. So this is Nico Iamaleava's stat line. So he throws for 314 yards and 3 touchdowns against Tennessee Chattanooga. And 69-3 win. Easy money. NC State, doesn't really have a great game. He had an average game, 16 for 23 for 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but he also had 8 rushes for 65 yards and a touchdown. Kent State really didn't do much, but they won 71-0, so he didn't really have to do much. Tennessee, first road start for him, 13 for 21, 194 yards and a touchdown, and he also ran for a pedestrian 15 yards. Oklahoma had a decent defense. So actually, before I say decent, let me look at how they fared in terms of their point spread. They had a fairly decent, somewhat decent defense. Never allowed the only time they a decent defense, but not great, but decent, fairly decent. But anyway, going back, but this is the game against Arkansas is really when the cracks started to show. 17 for 29, 158 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and 11 rushes for 17 yards. But famously, the last play of the game, Tennessee had a chance to throw in an end zone to try to win the game. But Nico, instead of trying to throw in the end zone, he runs out of bounds with no time left. And then it just kind of spiraled out of control from there. In SEC play, if I count this correctly, 1, 2, 3, 5, 9. He only threw 9 touchdowns. 9 of his 19 touchdowns came against SEC opponents. That's not very good. It's not very good at all. He was an average quarterback, especially against that playoff game against Ohio State, and the eventual national championship. 14 for 31 for 104 yards, completion percentage of 45%. Got sacked 4 times. He did not play a great game at all. And this guy's asking for $4 million. Like, this guy had the type of season that Jane Daniels had his first year. Jane Daniels' first year threw about 2,900 yards. And, he rushed for another 800. But imagine Dane Daniels asked for $4 million after that year. Every LSU fan would have called him insane. Even Joe Burrow after the 2018 season. In the 2018 season, he did not throw a single touchdown pass in the month of October. Imagine if NIL was a thing back then in 2018. Imagine if he went up to Coach L and was like, "Hey, Coach, I want $5 million." That would have been insane. It'd be one thing if Nico Iamaleava threw for 3,800 yards and threw 25 to 30 touchdowns and just let's say 10 interceptions. Then Tennessee would have was like, okay, we'll give you won't give you $4 million, but we'll give you $3.5 million plus incentives or whatever, and NIL money, and that would have been it. Because we want to know why? Because he's worth the investment. Everything in college sports is an investment, whether it's the NIL era or not. Nico Iamaleava is an average quarterback. The fact that he's asking for $4 million is an absolute disgrace because he was an average quarterback. If you want $4 million, you have to prove it on the field. If you don't prove it on the field, they're just going to scoff at you. I think Josh Heupel did the right thing by letting Nico Iamaleava go. There's a million quarterbacks out there. George McIntyre is coming up. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Nico Iamaleava or whatnot. My point is saying this is just that, the fact that Tennessee was willingly ready to move on from you like that lets me know that they didn't really believe you even last year. So why are you trying to ask him for $4 million? Makes zero sense. But anyway, but yeah, shout out to Josh Heupel, and that during that situation, because a lot of people would have bucked up in that situation, but Nico Iamaleava is not worth the investment. There's no reason for him to get $4 million. And matter of fact, LSU's roster in terms of NIL money is worth $5.5 million. Now, last year's roster was worth $5.5 million. This year's much higher because LSU invests a lot more in NIL in terms of the football team. But last year was worth $5.5 million. Nico Iamaleava is trying to ask for $4 million. Absolutely insane. But anyway, done with the football talk. Let's dive into baseball to end the show. Dan, the Diesel Freak. Dan, I'm doing pretty good, man. How about you? Doing awesome. First comment of the live show. Let's go, baby. Let me know where we're going when we're getting comments in the comment section. Make sure to leave comments if you want to ask a question. The comment section is right there. I'm more than willing to ask you. And, of course, I'm going solo today, so the more interaction, the better. And Zach should be back next week. Actually, I think Zach has spring break, so he definitely will be back next week. Hopefully he's not in like Cancun or something where he has no Wi-Fi, but he will be back next week. So, if you guys want to leave a comment, leave them, and because we'll gladly respond to your comments, and also we'll respond to your questions as well. But we're on to baseball. And LSU got swept in Auburn this week, and Auburn's always kind of given LSU some issues in recent years. I mean, anytime LSU plays Auburn, it's always going to be a clash. Just because, Auburn's a really well-coached team. Butch Thompson, I believe that's his name. I know his first name is Butch, but yeah, Butch Thompson. Yeah, he's always done a great job on the Plains. I mean, this year, they're a top 10 team when LSU played them. And, I'm pretty sure right now they're the number 7, number 8 team right now, according to D1Baseball.com. But Auburn's a very good team, and LSU. And LSU had opportunities to win the series. Don't get me wrong. Every single game that LSU played against Auburn, they had chances to win that game, but they just couldn't come through. But in the first game against Auburn, LSU lost 8-4. Cade Anderson did all right. He had in 4.1 innings, he had 6 strikeouts. However, he had 6 runs on 6 hits, and 5 of those runs were earned. He just got rocked, and Auburn got to him pretty early. Auburn had a 2-0 lead going in the second inning, and then in the 5th inning, but in the 5th inning was really when he really got rocked. Auburn's got 4 runs in this 5th inning. They extended the lead to 6-0. LSU really could not come back from that. Sam Dutton actually got the start for Auburn. Sam Dutton, of course, was a reliever for LSU throughout his entire time at LSU. Actually, I think he may have started. Was first year? No, he didn't start. He didn't actually never. I don't think he really started. He was more of a reliever. But he had a great freshman year. Sophomore year, he was kind of Last year, he was kind of He decided to transfer to go somewhere else, start anew, went to Auburn, and has really become a reliable starting pitcher for Auburn. He had 7 strikeouts in 6 innings pitched, only allowed 3 hits, and only had 2 walks as well. No runs. And he was able to get the win. He's 5 for 2 on the year. He's had a great year. Cade Anderson, that was actually his first loss as a pitcher, but LSU really struggled to get it going in this game, especially earlier on. LSU batted 182 as a team, 6 for 33 to be exact. They did well hitting the ball with 2 outs, 4 for 13, which is 308 batting average. But runners on 154, runners scoring position 222, 2 for 9. And it was a bad hitting night for LSU in general, and Auburn got the job done. But the next 2 games were really the ones they should have won. LSU had a 1-0 lead in this game 2 of the series, and then Auburn scored 2 runs in the fourth. So Stephen Milam homered to get LSU lead first, but Ike Irish doubled to left field on an RBI, and that was followed by a McMurray, a Cooper McMurray RBI double, and Ike RBI double. So they both had RBI doubles, and Ike Irish scored. And then Eric Snow homered in the bottom of the fifth to make it 4-1 Auburn. LSU was able to get on board once again when what's his name? Hold on. Tanner Reeves. I almost called him Austin Reeves. I'm a Lakers fan, so I almost called him Austin. But Tanner Reeves had an RBI single, but that was the last run LSU had. LSU lost 2-4. But this game was even worse game for LSU in terms of on the plate. And Auburn didn't really have a great game on the plate either. Don't get me wrong, but LSU 8 for 35 from behind the plate. That's 229 to be exact as a team. With the runners on 235, 4 for 17, 235 batting average. But for runners in scoring position, this is where it gets bad. They're 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Auburn 3 for 8. That's a 375 batting average. 1 for 10. If you know how to do math, at the 100 batting average. Not very good at all. Of course, Anthony Ianson was the pitcher in this game. He allowed all 4 runs. All 4 were earned. It was also his first loss of the season. Four runs and 6 hits with a walk and 5 strikeouts. Auburn was they just hit the ball at the most opportune times, while LSU did not. And Connor Ware went in there, had 2 strikeouts in the 1.1 innings pitched, but kind of Bang pitched an inning, and then DG Primo pitched 0.2. He closed out the game, but what I mean close out, I mean, he was the last pitcher to pitch for LSU. But LSU could not hit off of Cade Fisher. Cade Fisher had 6 strikeouts and only allowed 1 run, only allowed 3 hits, only allowed 1 run with 3 hits. But they just could not hit off of Cade Fisher, just like they can hit off of Sammy Dunn. But game 3 was also a game that LSU should have won as well. I mean, the one good thing was that Zach Cowan it showed that Zach Cowan's a really good pitcher. He's easily one of the best relievers in the country, and really Zach Cowan would be a starter at a lot of different places around the country. Just LSU's pitching staff is awesome this year, and this is the deepest pitching staff that Jay Johnson's ever had. It's just that LSU in this series just, there's been some times throughout the year where LSU just can't hit, and this is one of the series where they just couldn't hit. They were hitting the ball nicely early in SEC play, but just this series, they just couldn't get it going. And Auburn's always been a very tough place to play. LSU lost to Auburn 2 years ago, and they at that park, and then LSU did it again. And really, Auburn's are an average pitching staff compared to LSU's. So the fact that LSU cannot hit off Auburn's pitching staff is pretty disappointing, because Auburn's pitching staff is not the greatest, right? If you look at the pitching stats, they're in the middle, while LSU's kind of near the top. So it wasn't an extremely difficult pitching staff for LSU to hit off of, but it was difficult this weekend, and that's all that matters, is when your team shows up. But LSU lost this game 2-3. So Auburn got on the board first when Cooper McMurray doubled, had it hit a 2 RBI double to take a 2-0 lead in the first inning. Auburn then extended its lead when Derek Fabian grounded into a double play, but it was a sack RBI, RBI ground out. So he was rewarded with the RBI. LSU was able to get some runs together late in the game. Stephen Milam hit a sack ground out. He was able to get the RBI, and Jake Brown hit a single to the left field, which brought home Hunter Dickinson, and he had an RBI single for Jake Brown, but that was it for LSU. And LSU, in terms of that game, in terms of the hitting, this actually was their worst hitting performance of the weekend. 143 from behind the plate. That's 4 for 28 to be exact. 2 for 10 with 2 outs. That's a batting average 200. 4 for 16 with runners on. And now that was a little bit better than Auburn's, which was 4 for 17. So LSU did a little bit better, just a little tiny bit better than Auburn. But this is another kicker. 1 for 8 with the runners scoring position. Now Auburn also went 1 for 7, so they both didn't really do well in run scoring position. You know, you could tell it's 2-3 ball game. But just overall, the overall hitting, 428, which is a 143 batting average. You look at Auburn's 9 for 31, which was a 290 batting average. I mean, it was just not a great outing for LSU. And if you look at their combined, hitting, LSU batted 187 throughout the weekend. With runners on, they were 2 for 217. With the bases loaded, they were 0 for 4. They had 3 more bases loaded opportunities than Auburn and failed to convert. Auburn only had 1, but they converted on it. That was in the first game. And runners in scoring position, 4 for 27. That's a 148 batting average. If you look at Auburn, they batted 298 from behind the plate. That's 29 out of his 97 batting attempts. Auburn was also 346. They batted 346 from behind the plate with runners on. They were also batted 357 with the runners in scoring position. That's astronomically better than LSU's. And with runners on third with less than 2 outs, they went 4 for 7. I mean, it's just about the opportunities, right? LSU failed to convert on its scoring opportunities, and that made all the difference in the series. All the games were decided by 4 runs or less. Right, the first game was 8-4, and now Auburn got out to a huge lead to begin at the beginning of the game. But if you look at games 2 and game 3, the 2-run differential and a 1-run differential. I'm not saying LSU would have won the series, but they could at least could avoided getting swept. And it was just an extremely disappointing performance by LSU. And they still have time to recover. I mean, that's a great Auburn team. The SEC is an extremely tough conference to be in terms of college baseball. I mean, the South. I mean, the best baseball players, in my opinion, are in the South. Baseball is a regional sport, and you find a lot of great baseball players in the South. I mean, if you look at the top 10 rankings, Arkansas 1, Texas 2, LSU 3. Now this is from last week. Clemson 4. Well, not Clemson. They're not in the SEC. Skip them. Tennessee 5, Ole Miss 6, Georgia 7. 6 of the top 7 teams in the country are in the SEC. And then on top of that, Auburn and Alabama were 11 and 12. This is from last week. Auburn and Alabama were 11 and 12. So 8 of the top 12 teams in the country reside in the SEC. I mean, yeah, it's just the SEC is an extremely tough baseball conference. It's always has been, but it's been even worse in recent times. Actually, this is the update rate. I got the update rankings here. So Texas 1, Arkansas 2, Tennessee 4, Georgia 5, Auburn 8, LSU 9. So 1, 2. Actually, let me pull this up for you guys. Let me share this with you guys so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Texas 1, Arkansas 2, Tennessee 4, Georgia 5. So 4 of the top 5 teams in the country are in the SEC. Auburn's 8 and LSU's 9. So 6 of the top 10 teams are from the SEC. Almost is at 11. Alabama's at 15. Oklahoma's at 18. Vandy 19. So 1, 2, 3, 4. No, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the top 25 teams in the and 10 of the top 25 teams in the country are from the SEC. That is so 40% of the top 25 is from the SEC. But also, if you look at the list, most of these teams are in the southeastern part of the United States. So just in the South overall, it's just one of the hotbeds for baseball talent around the country. And then on top of that, the SEC is the toughest league to be in, right? This week, you got Alabama. They're at 15. And then the following week, you got Tennessee, who is the number 4 team according to D1Baseball.com. So it's an extremely tough place to play. I mean, it's an extremely tough conference to be in, especially for LSU. When if you look at the rest of the schedule, not only have Alabama this week, you have Tennessee next week, you have A&M the following week at A&M too. I know A&M's struggling, but A&M's still a very tough place to play because you got the ball six. That's a tough place to play. Then you got Arkansas, which is on my birthday weekend, and then at South Carolina, where LSU will go up against their legendary head coach Paul Mainieri. So that would be a pretty cool reunion for a lot of LSU fans to see Paul Mainieri, who was a legendary coach at LSU and really took over the program when it was kind of like, because when Skip Berman retired, right? They hired what's his name, Smoke. They forgot the guy's name, but he's basically a meme. Yeah, it was what was his name? Smoke Laval. Yeah, they hired Smoke Laval, and Smoke Laval didn't really have a great tenure at LSU. And then they hired Paul Mainieri, and then Paul Mainieri brought them back to prominence, and then in his third year, he led them to the national championship. So that would be a really cool way to end the season. But we're getting the meat of the schedule, y'all. This is really where you can see what LSU is capable of, because Alabama's no joke, and Tennessee, we all know the Tennessee's the defending national champion. We know how tough they are, especially under Tony Vitello. So this is we're in the meat grinder for SEC baseball now, y'all. But anyway, that's going to wrap up the show for today. Zach, as I said throughout the show, we'll be back later. We'll be back next week. Of course, he's had a very busy week, so he's got the time off, right? He's a school teacher, got leave, you name it. But he'll be back next week. I think I'm probably going to have a show later this week as well. I got to get it coordinated, and also go Tigers, y'all. I'm Grant Sasher. Make sure to follow me at SasherGan on Twitter. Also, make sure to like this video and subscribe to LSU at the Voice of College Football Network. And make sure to click on that bell because you'll get a notification whenever you whenever we release a new video, because not only do we release live videos like this one here, but we also clip some of the parts of the live segment. So in case you missed it, you can go back and always watch it. We're posting videos constantly. We started doing that again once me and Zach joined the Voice College Football Network, because when you look at the channel, it was nothing but it's a college football 25 game simulations, and then of course Mark, our boss, Mark Rogers, who runs the network, he will post videos about LSU in regards to he might have, recently he had on Matt Moscona, who I know very well, was the host of After Further Review, ESPN 104.5 in Baton Rouge, and one of the biggest sports personalities in regards to not only Louisiana media but also LSU sports. So make sure to check that out as well. Check out also all of our other videos, past videos that we've done from our live shows. We're starting to really get kicked back again, so make sure to support us and go Tigers. And we'll see y'all next week on LSU Live on the Voice of College Football. Peace, y'all.